On the surface, Diane Downs was a single mother of 3, living an ordinary life in Springfield, Oregon. She worked at the post office, smiled for neighbors, and drove her children around in her old car. To many who knew her, Diane seemed friendly, maybe even a little quirky. But behind the smile was something darker. It was the evening of May 19th, 1983. Diane had spent the day with her 3 children, Christy, age 8, Cheryl, age 7, and Danny, just 3 years old. By nightfall, she claimed she was taking them home after visiting a friend. But instead of safety and warmth, her car became the scene of one of the most shocking crimes in American history. At 10:48 p.m., Diane pulled into the emergency room parking lot at Mackenzie Willamette Hospital. Nurses and doctors rushed out. The sight that greeted them was horrific. In the front seat, Diane had a gunshot wound in her left arm. In the back seat lay her 3 children, covered in blood. Cheryl, the middle child, was already dead. Christy was slumped over, barely alive, her chest rising in shallow breaths. Little Danny had been shot in the back and could not move his legs. To the staff that night, it was chaos. They grabbed gurneys, shouting for supplies, racing the children inside. Diane followed them, crying out, but something about her tears didn't feel right. They weren't the tears of a desperate mother. They were almost rehearsed. When police arrived, Diane gave them her story. She said a man with bushy hair had flagged her down on a dark road. According to Diane, he demanded her car. She told him no, and in anger, he shot her children before shooting her in the arm. She said she fought him off, then drove to the hospital as fast as she could. At first, it sounded like the story of a mother's nightmare, but the cracks appeared quickly. Detectives noticed Diane's injury was odd. The bullet had passed through her arm in a way that looked superficial, almost like she aimed at herself, not a deep wound. Not the kind you'd expect from a life-or-death struggle. Nurses whispered that Diane seemed more concerned about her car than her children. One nurse even recalled Diane saying, "I really hope my car isn't ruined with all this blood." That didn't sound like grief. It sounded like selfishness. Then there was the drive to the hospital. Witnesses said Diane drove slowly, not racing, not frantic. Slowly, as if time didn't matter. But every second mattered for her children, who were bleeding out in the back seat. Doctors believed Cheryl could have lived if she had been rushed in sooner. That detail stuck in the minds of investigators. The police tested Diane's hands. No gunpowder residue. But they soon discovered that the bullets removed from the children's bodies matched a rare type of ammunition that Diane owned. She told police she had a .22 caliber pistol, but it was missing. The exact type of gun used in the shooting. Investigators searched her home. They didn't find the gun. But they did find unspent bullets that matched the ones used in the crime. The net was closing in. But the most damning evidence wasn't physical. It was emotional. Diane's own children, the survivors, would eventually tell the truth. Little Danny was only 3 years old. He was paralyzed from the waist down
after the shooting, but he was too young to explain what happened. The weight fell on Christy, just 8 years old. At first, Christy couldn't speak. Her injuries had left her partially paralyzed and in shock. Doctors weren't sure she would recover. For weeks, investigators waited, hoping she would live, hoping she could talk. Slowly, her voice returned, and when it did, she revealed the darkest secret of all. One night, in a quiet hospital room, Christy whispered to detectives, "My mom shot us." Those 4 words shattered the case wide open. The bushy-haired stranger never existed. It wasn't a random act of violence. It was their own mother. But why? Why would a mother do something so unthinkable? Investigators dug into Diane's personal life. They found letters, notes, an obsession. Diane was infatuated with a man named Robert Knickerbocker, a married man she had been having an affair with. He made it clear he did not want children. To him, Diane's 3 kids were baggage. Diane wanted his love more than she wanted her own children alive. In her twisted logic, if the kids were gone, she could finally be with him. This wasn't just a crime, this was cold calculation. Diane had planned it out. She knew the back roads, she knew the bullets. She even rehearsed her story about the stranger. But she didn't count on her daughter surviving. She didn't count on Christie's bravery. The trial began in May of 1984. It was a media circus. Reporters filled the courtroom. The nation was horrified, yet fascinated. Diane smiled for the cameras. She flirted with guards. She acted as if it were all a show. The prosecution called her selfish, narcissistic, incapable of empathy. The defense tried to push the stranger theory, but no one believed it anymore. The most dramatic moment came when Christie, now 9 years old, took the stand. She was terrified, but strong. In a small, shaky voice, she pointed to her mother and said, "She's the one who shot us." The courtroom went silent. Some jurors cried. It was the ultimate betrayal, spoken by a child who had lost everything. After weeks of testimony, the jury found Diane Downs guilty of murder, attempted murder, and assault. The judge sentenced her to life in prison plus 50 years, making sure she would never walk free again. Christie and Danny were later adopted by the prosecutor who had fought to put their mother behind bars. He gave them a new home, away from Diane's shadow. But their scars, both physical and emotional, would last forever. Diane, even today, refuses to admit guilt. From prison, she continues to claim a stranger shot her children. But the evidence, the testimony, and the bravery of Christie Downs tell a different story. The true story. This case is one of the darkest examples of how far a person can fall into selfishness and obsession. A mother, the one person meant to protect above all else, became the destroyer. It reminds us that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it tucks children into bed. Sometimes it pretends to love. And that is the chilling story of Diane Downs, a mother who traded love for murder. A betrayal that shocked the world and left us all asking, how could a mother do this?